After watching the trailer for Season 2 of Fallout, I was most intrigued about this moment here.
Well then, you're gonna need friends. There's a war coming.
A blackened screen with a deep booming voice had to be either one of two things. Either it's an extremely high-ranking member of the Brotherhood of Steel who is pivotal for the main story, or, and I hope this is the case, it is the beloved, friendly and extremely intelligent super mutant known as Marcus, who played a vital role in Fallout 2 and a minor role in Fallout New Vegas. Considering we are heading back to New Vegas and the Mojave Wasteland, I thought it would be plausible that our wacky team would venture into this friendly mutant and he could share some vital wisdom and experience with them about what his life had been like over the past 100 or so years. So in today's episode, I thought we would take a dive into this character and explore the story behind who he is and how he got to where he is in 2281 and beyond, in the hope that maybe we might see his face again in Season 2. So sit back, relax, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment and let's explore the life of the ex-Unity super mutant known only as Marcus. Our story of Marcus has to begin with a man named Richard Moreau, later be known as the Master and the creator of the Super Mutants. Moreau was lucky enough to survive the Great War as he entered Vault 8 with a few lucky others. However, as the war came to an end and the vaults started opening across the country, Moreau would be exiled from Vault 8 due to him murdering a fellow Vault dweller. Now venturing the wasteland, he would set himself up within a place called the Hub, and whilst there he would set himself up as a doctor and would go by the name of Dr. Gray. Establishing a good rapport with the people of the Hub and the caravans that ventured through and traded there, this was pretty much his life. That was until he was alerted to the nearby mutant attacks happening, reported by some of the caravans. One man known as Harold organized a new expedition to stop these mutants, and when he did, Gray joined to witness these mutants for himself and assumed the role of leader. He was a man of knowledge after all, and this piqued his interest greatly. However, when the group arrived at what was named the Mariposa military base, Harold and Gray would be the only two to fight through the mutants and security robots and found themselves within a large area filled with mysterious vats of extremely toxic liquid. However, they only had a few moments to take it in before they would be taken out by a robotic crane. Harold would be knocked out only to awaken later to find himself within the wasteland once again. But for Gray, he would be knocked into one of the vats that was filled with FEV, a bioweapon being developed before the Great War that was used to create super soldiers and heavily mutate a human's physical form. Now stuck in this vat, Gray would float there for days on end, almost drowning in the slime, until eventually he emerged from the vat, heavily radiated but alive. After a while, Gray started to realize that the radiation exposure had boosted his mental capabilities, as he was now capable of solving extremely complex problems, as well as resolve philosophical questions that many had not been able to even consider. Realizing the power he had gained from all of this, Gray started experimenting more with this FEV, utilizing any animals in the nearby area to see what effects it had on them, not just one animal at a time, but instead strapping creatures together, which included a rat and a dog, to see what the virus could do. Witnessing what happened to the rat and the dog, Gray came up with his new vision, and with it constructed his new philosophy of unification, making it so all things united together to form one. The problem now was that Gray had run out of test subjects, and he had to find a new solution to this problem, because without test subjects he could not learn more about what this FEV was capable of. In the year 2102, Gray had undergone more mutations, and with it, he injected more of the virus into them to see what he could gain from it. Doing this, he would be able to gain the ability to neurologically link with all computers. With this new power, he would be able to access all of the facility's files on the virus and what it was capable of. With that new knowledge, he would use it, and also got lucky that fellow Wastelanders had also started venturing to this area to see what was inside, and when they did, Gray would capture them and experiment on them, giving him everything he wanted. It took a few years, but eventually in January 2103, Gray would work out that the transformation success would only work when you isolated radiation exposure. With it, he was then able to create his first ever super mutant who would be a part of his new philosophy to life, as it would become a hive mind with him and become a part of his new army that he would name as Unity. At first, not many super mutants would be created due to the lack of subjects, and the nearby communities had tight security, meaning they could not just be raided and grabbed for his experiments. By 2130, the Master, as he would now be known as, had a small but successful army, all with a hive mind and increased abilities in strength and speed. But now his subjects were gone. This was all he had to experiment on, and he needed a new solution to this problem. Here he would focus on the caravans venturing across the wasteland, setting up raids that would acquire them, and as the wastelanders learned about these raids, would send forward expeditions similar to Grey's at the beginning to deal with these, what they thought were just wasteland monsters who were causing problems. The more groups sent to deal with these mutants, the more people would join Unity and the Master's forces, as it would increase in size dramatically by the year 2137. But not only that, some would even learn about the Master and his goals for a new way of life, witnessing the super mutants as his creations, would actually volunteer themselves to join his ranks, not brainwashed at all, just hoping for a new future for the world. This is where Marcus comes into it all. Sadly, not much is known about who Marcus was before his transformation. However, it's clear that he was a born leader, a man with true principles and a major focus on the goodness of people. And maybe this was a view he has now many years on from his transformation, but personally I believe this was a characteristic of his from before he became a mutant. That said, Marcus could have been a leader of a caravan team venturing across the wasteland, either trading or offering his services, or he could have been one of the brave and loyal soldiers sent out to deal with the mutants that they believe were just, as mentioned, wasteland monsters. Regardless, Marcus was captured by the Master's forces, or he personally volunteered himself, and with it was dunked into one of the large FEV vats in the Mariposa military base. Interestingly, however, Marcus would go on to state that he has no major regrets about being dunked and transformed into a mutant at all. So maybe that could suggest that he did indeed volunteer to become a mutant, or it's something he just accepted about himself and there's really no way he can be changed back into his former self. He does go on to actually say that he much prefers his existence as a super mutant now, as it completely removes all of the petty flaws that are so rampant within human society, as people judge each other on extremely minor character flaws or by how much money they have or status. As a super mutant, none of that matters. That is not what the focus of their lives are anymore, but that is his view now. Back in the year of 2140s or later, Marcus's life was to change dramatically, as he was now a part of the terrifying new army of Unity that was going to devastate the communities of the wasteland for the next few years. Becoming a part of the Master's new army, Marcus actually thrived here and was passionate about what the Master had planned for humanity, stating that the Master's vision and philosophy was a chance to elevate humankind above pointless petty wars and finally bring them all together to stop the cycle of war. Marcus, during this time within Unity, believed that humanity could never do this on its own. They were too emotional, too confrontational with one another, and even if people agreed to end war, it was always going to happen again at some point. With the Master's plan of unification, that was to all change though, and this was the only way for success. This plan of unity went on from the years of 2137 all the way up until 2161, because in that year, the Master and all of his plans would completely crumble thanks to one Vault Dweller making their way into the Master's base of operations within the site known only as the Cathedral, where his loyal subjects went to worship in his plan. Not just his super mutant warriors, but cultists as well, which were named as the followers of the Apocalypse and the children of the Cathedral. Maybe Marcus could have heard about the Master's plan from these individuals as well, and that's what persuaded him to be dunked into the vats to be turned into a super mutant. It certainly seems plausible considering how passionate he was during this time in his life to what the Master was all about. It actually makes more sense that he was persuaded into believing the Master's plans over just being captured and forced into it. And going back to what he said, he mentions he never regrets the transformation. That to me doesn't sound like someone being forced into it. That sounds like someone that made the choice into becoming a super mutant, and maybe that's why he's a bit more intelligent compared to others. Maybe the acceptance helps them keep their humanity to some extent. Regardless, 2161 saw the complete destruction of the Cathedral and the Master as well, as this lone Vault Dweller would destroy everything he had planned, and with it, Unity would crumble. Super mutants still existed, but they were now left to wander the world on their own, trying to work out what their next life goal was to be. Because of these actions by the Vault Dweller, Marcus and many of the remaining super mutants mutant went on to absolutely hate them with a passion, as well as the rest of humanity as a result. This one individual had destroyed everything they had wanted from life, and now there was no hope left. However, after time, Marcus began changing this viewpoint, and in fact started to look up to the Vault Dweller to some extent, seeing them as an incredibly brave individual. With that viewpoint, his hatred for mankind lessened as well, and with it he came to the conclusion that if this one heroic individual could get something done that seemed so grand in scale, but their passion and dedication to the cause helped them do it, then maybe humanity could follow that same suit. And they didn't actually need the Master to achieve this. Clearly, it is in all humans to make a difference, and maybe not now, but someday they can end the cycle of war on their own, not through the Master's unification process. That said, however, Marcus still missed Unity and the friends that he had made during his time within it. The world seemed a bit lonely for him now, and he had to somehow come up with a new purpose for what he did in his life. After that devastating day in 2161 for Marcus, he was left with his thoughts for many years, as he ventured over the wasteland trying to work out what he was to do with his new life of being free from Unity, but without anyone to guide him or any of his fellow brothers and sisters around him. 14 years later, Marcus came face to face with an enemy, a journeyman knight of the Brotherhood of Steel named Jacob, who immediately raised his gun at the hulking mutant in front of him. Almost immediately, the two started to fight each other. This wasn't a quick gunfight or anything like that. This battle went on for a few days until eventually both had become so exhausted they both conceded and ended it. With it now over, the two faced each other and laughed, with Jacob declaring he was abandoning his sworn oath to destroy mutants and asked to join Marcus on his travels over the wasteland, in which Marcus agreed. Now venturing towards New California, the two extremely powerful warriors would go on endless discussions about all things about the world, focusing on what the Brotherhood was about, as well as Unity, the Master, the Cathedral's computers, and so much more. As they discussed all of this more and more, Wastelanders joined them in their travels, realizing that this is probably the safest group to be a part of because they were not only under the protection of a member of the Brotherhood of Steel, but also a veteran super mutant who had somehow united together and were friendly. If anyone were to attack them, well, Marcus and Jacob would cut them down in a heartbeat. Seeing that their group had grown in size quite dramatically, Marcus saw this as a new opportunity to foster something fresh, and with it led all of the group to the site of a pre-war uranium mining town that he had learned about from old maps on his travels. Getting there, Jacob and Marcus would establish a new settlement that they would name as Broken Hills in the fall of 2185. However, after surviving the cold winter, Jacob said his goodbyes to Marcus and the rest of the town, stating that he had to keep on venturing, most likely going back to the Brotherhood of Steel, and with his departure, Marcus would never see Jacob ever again. Marcus would miss Jacob massively, especially his chats where the two would endlessly debate about Jacob being dunked into the FEV, with Marcus saying he would have been a great mutant. The other settlers of Broken Hills would also honor Jacob for what he had done for them, and some of them would go on to name their children after him, as was seen with one individual named Jacob the Chemist. Marcus was now the mayor of this new settlement, and it was up to him to make the difference and provide leadership for all of these new people. Luckily, Marcus was incredibly proficient with his leadership, similar to how he worked within Unity back in the day, and people recognized his efforts. He was successful in setting up Broken Hills with other settlements as well, as it would trade the uranium from the mine to numerous clients all over the wasteland, which included Vault City, helping Broken Hills to become incredibly prosperous as a result. That said, being surrounded by humanity allowed Marcus to see the problems he had with it in the first place, and the reason for why he was a part of Unity to begin with. The petty hatred and envious nature of them was on show almost every day, and it helped remind Marcus of what the Master had set out to be rid of from humanity. It made him question if the Master's plans would have actually fully succeeded, or were these traits always going to be an issue regardless of who they converted into their unity. Seeing it that humanity would always have a trait to tear down those that were exceptional in life, because those who weren't exceptional would always be jealous of them. Marcus in these moments knew that the Master was correct in his plans, and that his plan was the only way to help humanity, but he pushed those feelings down and remembered his friend Jacob and what he wanted from uniting everyone here within this new settlement. He had to be strong and carry on and find a new way to make this place where humans and mutants could live together in harmony. That said, it didn't take long before things within Broken Hills started to change, as rumors of an anti-mutant conspiracy were spreading around. Marcus could not let this continue on and had to find a way to work out where these rumors were coming from, because currently they were just hidden from plain sight and lurking in the shadows. Needing help desperately, Marcus reached out to an outsider of his community, a tribal individual that would eventually go on to be known as the Chosen One. Telling everything to this Chosen One, they would both set out on a mission to find where these conspiracies were originating from, eventually finding out that the leader was the previously mentioned Jacob the Chemist, with the other members of Frank, Manson, Aileen, and Liz. The Chosen One would shut all of these conspirators down and report back to Marcus, who was eternally grateful for what they had done for him and his people. With that said, however, Marcus realized that settling down was not to be for him. He was getting too old, and it was quite clear tension was getting high within this settlement, and he needed something new. With this, he would offer his services to the Chosen One and venture with them as they journeyed across the whole of the wasteland on a mission to take out the Enclave once and for all. Marcus and the Chosen One would be extremely successful in this regard, as they were going to save all of the people of Arroyo by locating the Enclave's headquarters, an oil rig out on the west coast sea, and blowing it up utilizing the nuclear bomb inside of it. With that major mission over now, the Chosen One had fulfilled their role in saving the wasteland, and with it continued on alone, venturing on to do something new. Marcus, like with Jacob before, would never meet with this individual ever again, and it was now time to find something new to pursue, having a refreshed, positive view on humanity once again, seeing the Chosen One in a similar light to the Vault Dweller in 2161, and of course his closest human friend of Jacob. Broken Hills was now just a memory for Marcus, as he would never venture back to that place. It wasn't that he didn't want to help his people anymore, it was the fact that the uranium mine had completely dried up now, and there was just no way the settlement could thrive anymore. The only thing he could do was leave it and seek out a new opportunity. Once again, Marcus wandered the wasteland, just looking out for something new to pique his interests, or a new friend he could learn from. This time, Marcus would go on to head east on his travels into the Rocky Mountains, frequently remembering the last journey he went on with his dear friend Jacob. Venturing here, Marcus found a new goal that he wanted to focus on. This time he was to seek out fellow mutants like himself who, since 2161, had been scattered all over the wasteland, and once meeting with them, would band them together and form their own unique settlements just for them. When he would eventually meet with these mutants, the years of being a mayor and talking with others on his journey had helped him stand out as a true leader, and that helped the other mutants follow him on his travels, as they would gather in quite some size and eventually make it to the Mojave Wasteland, where they would set up in the area known as Black Mountain. Black Mountain was a pre-war military comms array that had been targeted during the war and struck with a nuclear strike, leaving the whole area heavily irradiated, so much so that very few humans could reach this place, allowing the mutants to be isolated away from everyone bar a few extremely brave and heavily protected human scavengers. By 2277, Black Mountain was now occupied by these super mutants, with Marcus once again becoming the leader of this group who would look out for their interests. When setting up within this old military place, the mutants discovered that the comms system that had been left there was still in good condition, which massively inspired Marcus, who thought this would be the perfect opportunity to reach out to other mutants and bring them back to his new area that he deemed to be a mutant haven. This was a good intention, but unfortunately for Marcus, it did not work at all, and actually brought about something worse. When reaching out to all mutants, a big group of Nightkin, led by a high-ranking ex-Unity member named Tabitha, would find themselves entering the base after hearing the messages from Marcus. Tabitha, however, had been suffering massively from Stealth Boy-induced schizophrenia, which could not be cured by her robot companion Rhonda, who had broken on their travels. The Nightkin were ultimately the next stage in super mutant creation. They were the elite of the Master's army, capable of becoming invisible thanks to Stealth Boys and getting the upper hand on their enemies. They are a force to be reckoned with, and if you were to witness one in the flesh, it was probably already too late. As mentioned, they were the elites, and unfortunately, they knew that as well, especially Tabitha, who deemed herself as a prophet of mutant kind. Marcus tried desperately to distract her with journal projects. However, that would fail as she realized she could get her message out utilizing the Black Mountain's functional radio station that she would go on to get repaired. As time went past, Tabitha's mental abilities would deteriorate more and more as she would start to look down on Marcus and his leadership, believing he and his fellow Gen 1 and Gen 2 super mutants were lesser than her and her Nightkin, who in her eyes were the superior mutant race and the future of what mutants should look like. Things came to a head when Tabitha even came up with a conspiracy that Marcus was trying to usurp her destiny and steal her leadership role, and that could not stand. Marcus pled heavily with Tabitha, trying to get peace amongst the two types of super mutants. However, it was unsuccessful, and it seemed like they were moments away from having a civil war within Black Mountain. Marcus realized he could not put his mutants into a war against the Night King. That was not what this place was about. His whole ideology about unity also fell to pieces. He knew humanity were capable of these petty squabbles, but witnessing the Master's own creations of the mutants fighting amongst themselves just meant everything was a lie, and there really was no way that the Master's plans could have succeeded even if he was still alive. With that thought, Marcus and the rest of his super mutants went on to leave Black Mountain in 2279 as they found themselves once again venturing over the wasteland, looking for yet another place where they could settle down and create a peaceful community for their kind. In a last attempt to get in the upper hand of Tabitha, Marcus would go on to destroy the radio transmitter within Black Mountain, hoping that it would hamper her efforts in becoming a prophet for mutant kind. Unfortunately for Marcus, like many of his failed plans, this did not go well at all, as a wandering ghoul mechanic from Mexico named Raul Tejeda would arrive at Black Mountain and offer to fix it for the ones housed there. Tabitha, seeing that he was a capable mechanic, went on to capture him and imprison him in the station and forced him into slavery, making him repair everything within Black Mountain, which included the relay that attracted him to the location, as well as her robot companion Rhonda. As Raul fixed everything under gunpoint, Tabitha was able to broadcast her insane voice on the radio once again as it blasted out all over the wasteland, trying to set up her new mutant stronghold named the State of Yotabitha. With Marcus's group now far away from Black Mountain, sad and angry that it did not go the way they had planned, they needed to find yet another place where they could set up and be safe from any other external factors. Witnessing New Vegas from a distance, it was clear that they would have to keep major distance away from heavily populated human areas, or they would become immediate targets, and eventually they would find the perfect place to set themselves up. This was an old ski lodge tucked away against the cliffs of Mount Charleston in the northwest of the desert. This place was perfect for all of the mutants. It had a great, intact building, lots of land on the outside, and easily enough room for all of his fellow mutants, with ceilings extremely high, perfect for their builds. Setting up here, it became clear to Marcus what this place should be named. He had come a long way since he first met with his close human friend, and wouldn't be here today without him. And because of that, Marcus went on to name the whole place as Jacobstown, in honor of his Brotherhood of Steel friend who had taught him about acceptance and the new world around him. Due to it being located so far away from human civilization, the mutants here were allowed to thrive for themselves, as they would set up strong security on the entrance of the town and were protected by the mountain around the back and sides of the buildings. The mutants also went on to set up their own crops to help sustain them, as well as their own big horn of cattle that they would farm under supervision of Lily, a friendly, if not just a little bit insane member of their society. That said, however, the mutants did have trouble when it came to looking after the Bighorner, who would find them under regular attacks from packs of Night Stalkers who were desperate for any type of food at this point in time. Despite that, Marcus had done it again and had set up a new settlement for all of his mutants looking for a peaceful place to live. But that wasn't all. Marcus also wanted Jacobstown to be similar to Broken Hills, capable of trading valuable items and becoming linked with human organizations to finally get that human-mutant cooperation going again. A few years passed after Marcus and his mutants found Jacobstown, and during 2281, it was doing pretty well, but still establishing itself in its trade links. Some of the Night King had also followed Marcus to this location and were housed within the walls. However, their schizophrenia seemed to be getting worse, and they needed a solution soon to make sure things weren't going to get out of hand. Luckily for Marcus, around this same time, Dr. Henry had learnt about the super mutant base and saw it as a good opportunity to conduct his research after being an Enclave member in time past. Meeting with Marcus, Dr. Henry would be told the situation about what was going on and that they needed to find a cure for the Night King. Agreeing to help, Dr. Henry was welcomed into Jacobstown as long as he could actually work on the cure for their problems. Hearing word that there was a Night King cure in the works at Jacobstown, other Night King made their way to the area to demand that they get help. This included the Night King group leaders such as Keen and Davison. Waiting around day after day started to rile up the Night King, and eventually it got to the point where some of them couldn't take waiting any longer. Eventually, Davison left Jacobstown, showing his disapproval of being sold a lie on a cure. However, for Keen, they would continue to wait around a bit longer, but their patience was also wearing away and they were close to leaving as well. Or worse, kicking off against all of the other mutants and Dr. Henry, who they hated with a passion. Once again, Marcus would reach out and get the help of a lone wanderer called the Courier to help him with all of the tasks around his safe haven. Whilst previously he stated that he was getting too old to settle down, it does feel like if he can get the Night King to cooperate or find the cure for them, that Jacob's town could be a prosperous safe haven for all mutants and maybe even open its doors to other people, including ghouls like Broken Hills did all of those years ago. Marcus is a fighter, but gone are the days of needless violence. He is practical and just wants the best for his people. He doesn't want to see them squabble over land or resources. He just wants to prosper so that he can welcome others in to also live well. His hatred of humanity has now gone, but he still despises the flaws of humanity, such as envy and pettiness towards each other, something that the super mutants also seem to have at this point in time. But like many humans of the Wasteland, that is something many people can all agree on, and maybe they can all unite together and stop that negative trait that ruins so many societies. Now being well over 100 years old now, it's quite clear that Marcus isn't slowing down anytime soon, even if he believes he is an old man. But what is next for him? Well, we will have to wait and see. I'm hoping he will make an appearance in season 2 of Fallout because he is a great character and would fit extremely well with Lucy and Maximus, and might even have some very interesting dialogue with the Ghoul about how times have changed from a good while ago. Maybe Marcus will have to accept that war will never change and will have to choose a side eventually in the hope that the side will make a difference, but hopefully if that is the case, he will stay true to his character and always search for a peaceful solution and not just kill anyone who gets in his way. But for now, I'm just waffling. So until we learn more about what has happened to this friendly and highly intelligent super mutant, this has been the story of Marcus from the Fallout universe. I want to say a big thanks for watching this video, and do let me know what you think of it and if you think it will make an appearance in season 2 of Fallout. And if you are watching this after the season has come out, let me know what you thought of him being in it or not being in it in the comments below. A big thanks to my patrons for supporting this channel once again, including my small fishes, my YouTube channel Wise Ones, Video Gamer 75, Sith Lord 906, Planet Nanotarium, V3XXE and Ethan Feldman, my big fishes Tismida Mine and Anthony Bonfiglio, my shark Dan F, my megalodons Hazy Thoughts and Sinus, and my incredible starfish Nanohertz. But with that said, that is all for now. Thank you once again for watching, and I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers. Cheers.